This week on Secure Digital Life, it's not in the studio. It's here. It's with you. We're going to talk about something that I know you want to learn, which is hexadecimal. Hexadecimal is so important, and it ends up playing a role in so many different pieces of networking, programming, and just general technology that it's hard to live without it. It's even on my license plate. I'm not going to tell you what it says, but you can find out pretty easy. So be sure, hang around, and on SDL, we'll talk about hex when we return.
This is a Security Weekly production.
Welcome to Secure Digital Life. And you type in AAA porn or whatever it is you're typing in. I'm sorry. I was at a PG show.
And I'm really excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here because somebody needs to know what's going on.
That's right.
Okay, so
now somebody has to drink this.
I think it's another day. It's another episode.
Yeah, he's looking at the wrong camera.
You put my camera over here. Cut. Basically, forget you ever saw that. I think actually forgetting you ever saw that would really be a good idea at this point. SDL with you this week talking about hexadecimal. But first, before we do anything else, how about this? DEF CON coming right up. I mean, before you know it, it's going to be DEF CON-y time. Out in Las Vegas at Caesars Palace, 27th through the 30th. Paul and Security Weekly crowd going to be there. You should be there too. Unfortunately, they didn't take me this time, but hey, maybe next time. Who knows? You guys have to beg and plead for me to be there so I can do more Hacker Movie Trivia. If you haven't checked out Hacker Movie Trivia, it's all on the website now, so you can check that out too if you want to see it from the Albany Anycon conference. So go back and watch those. They're actually pretty good. A couple times Mark was almost knocked the camera over. He was laughing. Lots and lots of fun. Should be even more fun at DEF CON. Black Hat coming up just before DEF CON at the Mandalay Bay on the 22nd to the 27th of July. So you definitely want to go to Black Hat and learn some skills if you can get there. Paul and company going to be there too, so they're going to give away stuff. They're going to sell shirts and glassware and all kinds of fun things, so you can definitely grab onto some of those. Get one of those shot glasses. Who knows, they may even have some challenge coins or something. Wouldn't shock me one bit. I'm doing this from a remote because I got sent off to a secret thing with the Navy. If I told you about it, I'd have to kill you. Or actually, I wouldn't kill you, but like a SEAL team would show up at your house or something like that. So just let it go. But I couldn't be there at the studio today. So unfortunately, I had to film this in advance, which means that you get to watch it. But it's the same thing either way. It's all just, it's all wonderful. How can you resist? Wild West Hackin' Fest. That's coming up the 27th to 29th of October at the Lodge in Deadwood, South Dakota. You know you want to go to that because, hey, it's in South Dakota. It's really close to Wyoming, actually. It's really close to Sturgis, where they have all those motorcycle rallies, way out in the middle of nowhere in western South Dakota. I looked it up on a map because I actually didn't know where it was. But it's a really cool place. I'm going to be there. Paul, Larry, everybody's going to be there. We're going to be doing Hacker Movie Trivia. Trying to get them to add Star Trek trivia, but I don't know if I'm going to win that fight or not. So hopefully I will, and you get to see some Star Trek trivia challenges there too. Maybe even Star Wars trivia, because everybody seemed to like that a lot too. But I know more about Star Trek than I know about Star Wars, but I do know who Jar Jar Binks is, and we won't get into that. So this week's episode I titled, If We Only Had 16 Fingers. And we want to talk a little bit about the dreaded hexadecimal. I don't know why people dread it. I always thought hex was a really easy thing to do. It made perfect sense to me, but I came from a time when we dealt with binary a lot more than you have to deal with binary today. Networking professionals and security professionals do end up dealing with binary because you want to do very special things and understand them. I know you do, because how can you live with yourself if you're out there and you're saying, gee, I don't understand binary, but I somehow managed to manage my network. So time to learn. Now, last week, if you tuned in, we talked about binary numbers and how we could convert all those binary numbers back and forth between various and sundry things. This week, we're going to talk about how to do that same kind of stuff with hexadecimal. One of the things that we would see hex very commonly used for is MAC addressing. So in layer 2 of the network, on every one of your network devices, you have a MAC address. And guess what? Those are written in hex. So if you know something about hex, you at least know what you're looking at. Hex is also used exclusively in IPv6. We haven't done a show on IPv6 yet because, boy, we have to get up our nerve for that. Although, actually, IPv6 is pretty easy once you get used to it. It's kind of like dealing with Chinese. You know, when you first look at it, it looks like, well, Chinese. But once you relax a little bit, you settle down and you look at Chinese a lot, you go, oh, it actually makes pretty good sense. I mean, this is what this means and this is what this means. And the grammar is pretty easy, actually. IPv6 is kind of the same way, but we'll do that another day because we don't have enough time to talk about IPv6 yet. And of course, then also when you need to deal with binary. So one of the most common places that you see people dealing with binary, of course, is in low-level programming. And when you deal with low-level programming, you're always dealing with binary machine language stuff, things like that. So it's very necessary to understand that. But the problem with binary is it gets unruly. It gets long, it gets gargantuan. Binary numbers can be, you know, even small numbers get really big. I mean, the largest number you can write in 8 bits is, surely you remember that, 255. I hope you shouted that out at the camera for if you watched last week's show. But 255 is the biggest number in 8 bits. Okay, here we go. Here's a challenge question. What's the biggest number in 16 bits? Did you know it? I hope so. Did you know the biggest number in 16 bits? 65,535 decimal is the biggest number in 16 bits. One of my favorite numbers. I always refer to it. But even then, you think about that, 16 bits. And you'd have to keep up with all that. So by the time you start getting into, you know, bigger and bigger numbers, you're talking 32, 64, 128 bits, and it starts to get kind of out of hand. So why hexadecimal? Well, we don't have 16 fingers. At least I don't. And sometimes I wish I did, because then I could play all those Steve Vai guitar songs that I like to watch sometimes. But I don't have 16. I only have 10. However, base 10 in binary, as you learned last week, is not the easiest thing to manage. And if all you need to do is look at binary from a perspective of converting it to something so it's easier to deal with and report, well, there's 2 obvious answers. Octal, which is base 8 numbers, and hex, which is base 16. Either one of these converts very, very easily back and forth from binary, so it's easy to write down hexadecimal numbers in place of binary numbers. And anyone, I mean anyone, including maybe even my cats, could probably learn to do hex to binary and back, because you really only need to know a couple of things. Hex is base 16. And what that means, in decimal we use base 10, so that means there are 10 total symbols that are in use. So when you work with decimal numbers, use 0 through 9 as symbols. And when you run out of symbols, you start over. So you write 1 and a 0. That creates, in binary, you've got 2 symbols. So you write a 0 and a 1, and then, well, you have to start over. 1 and 0, which represents, yeah, you remember, that's a 2. Okay, so basically in hex, we go to 9. So we have 0 through 9. And when we get to 9, the next symbol after that is not 1, 0 like we would do in decimal. It is actually the letter A. So when we switch up and we go to the next part of that, A equals 10 decimal. All right? So this is where this goes. And we do this all the way up through, all the way up through F. And all you really have to remember, and I'm going to actually type these out for you. I won't type decimal every single time because that gets tedious. E14. I mean, obviously, you probably have deduced what the rest of this is. Those 6 things represent the rest of hex. So this is, I know I keep looking up because my camera is just a little above eye level, so you get a little kind of weirdness there, but that's okay. You can live with it, right? I mean, I always look, you know, I know you love to look at me. That's why I put my picture on here instead of just letting you see the screen, but hey, what are you going to do? It's like learning hex with Brad Pitt. That's what they keep telling me. But so we have these 6 symbols, A, B, C, D, E, F. And so the next symbol after we run out in hex, because the last symbol in hex is F, the next symbol then is 1, 0, which represents the number 16 in hex. So this is a little bit different than what a lot of people are used to, but it really is just a different numerical set, just like binary is different than decimal and octal is different and so on and so forth. So we want to see how we can utilize this so that we get from binary to hex, which is really the easiest thing to do, or we get from decimal to hex, which takes an extra step. It's not very hard. And anytime you have everything either in hex or in binary, switching from binary to hex and hex to binary is really, really, really easy. You'll like it. It's a total bunny, and you'll enjoy it a lot. And this brings us back to a very special thing that we talked about last time. And I can't type today. Figures. 4 bits. So when we get down to 4 bits, it's called a nibble. And nibbles are all that hex is. And every single hex letter is essentially one nibble. So that means that if you can do the powers of 2 from 0 to 3, you're all set. You can convert any binary number to hex, any hex number to binary. It's very, very easy because you only have to know 4 powers of 2. If you can add 8, 4, 2, and 1 together in different patterns, you can do all hex and all binary to hex and all hex to binary anytime, any place, anywhere, and win every single hexadecimal bar bet that comes up. So the next time you're with your friends and you want to win some money, impress, whoever you're trying to impress, and come up with a bar bet when you can do it because you can do these in your head. Even easier than converting decimal and binary back and forth is converting binary to hex to binary. Now, if you have to go from decimal to hex, you have to add the binary step in the middle, which we covered last time. So you've already seen that in the last show. So what we do here, if you, just for reference purposes, I'm going to have to try to type these. And I got this new keyboard that I like, but I also don't like. These are our powers of 2 we need to remember. So just in case you've forgotten from last week, these are just basic math. And I know most of you know all these basic math kind of things, but that's okay. We'll put them up here just in case you forgot or you can't remember or you've never heard of this. So 2 to the 0 is 1, 2 to the 1 is 2, 2 to the 2 is 4, or 2 squared, and 2 cubed, or 2 to the 3rd is 8. So that gives you all the pieces of a nibble. And once you know that, you're all set for hex. So in these nibbles, so if we write these down, that nibble right there, well, that one's really easy. It equals a 0. It always equals a 0, and it will never change. The rest of these are just as easy as that. So we can write them down in any way, form, or fashion. Now, if you can remember in your head all these different nibbles, and I'm not going to write every one of them down because we'll run out of time, you can remember how to convert these into hexadecimal, because all that really matters is the biggest number a nibble can represent is 15. Guess what 15 is in hex? F. Okay, so you already know the 0. So a nibble that's all zeros is 0. Easy. All the numbers are easy. So a nibble that's a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or whatever, all those are the same. The only place that, and you know the last one, so when you see all the bits turned on, so if you ever get out here and you get to one of these where you've got all the bits on, that one's a total bunny. It's 15. 15 is an F, always. So that's really easy too, and you can convert it either way. You can convert those back and forth. Okay, let me show you another one. There's 2 other really easy ones that are very easy to remember right off the top of your head. This is one of my favorites. This equals 10. I'll go ahead and write these out too, just so you got them. 10 in decimal equals an A in hex. So when you see 10, 10, you got an awfully big clue there. So if you need to remember these, just remember 10, 10 is 10, and that's an A. And you can do all that in your head super, super quick. So now you've got a whole bunch of them already. You got 0, you got 1, you got 15, you got 10. Those are easy. Well, here's another easy one for you. 10, 11. 10, 11 is 11. And that equals a B. H. We've already knocked out a bunch of these things pretty straightforward. And if you get used to this, pretty shortly you'll know all the rest of them, and they're all pretty easy. Those are my only really easy ones. The rest of them you have to kind of figure out until you know them off the top of your head. But once you learn the places in these bit structures, like I hope by now that when you see something like this, you know that you know what number that is, right? That's 2 to the 1st, or that's a 2. Well, that's the same in hex, not whatever J is. So that one's really easy. 3 is, just one more than that. Wow. So in the end, it's not really that hard. And remember, when you have these, they're very easy. So like that one, for instance, anytime there's just one bit turned on, it's just a power of 2. So you already know that the answer is either 1, 2, 4, or 8. So you can really cut to the chase there and go, well, that one's 8 for sure. So now I got another hex number I know automatically off the top of my head. And this one, well, that one is 4. And it's the same in hex. So the only other ones you really need to worry about then are the ones that you have to kind of come together with the powers of 2. So if you write some number down like this, 1101, well, you have to figure that one out. But look, you can do this in your head pretty fast. 8 plus 4, or if you could type it right, plus 1. And it just takes a little bit of practice. 12 plus 1, 13. That equals 13, which equals D in hex. So we're really quickly kind of knocking all these out. It's also very easy to remember E, because E is everything except that last one. And that equals 14, so that equals E in hex. Ugh, I keep typing the wrong thing. The keyboard's slightly off from where my original keyboard was, and I'd used that other keyboard for years and years and years, and it wore out, and they quit making that particular model, and I got this new one that's lit, and it's really fancy, posh kind of keyboard, which I can kind of pick it up and hold it up. But it's the keys are slightly off, and it throws me off sometimes, especially in the dark. But it is lit up, so you can. But I don't look at my hands when I type, because I had Sister Mary Margaret and her magic cane teaching typing way back in like the 6th grade or something. And whenever they caught you typing and look at your hand, they whack you one, and then you remember not to do it. But this is how you can do these conversions. So once you know how to do that, you're really all set to convert any kind of number. So let's just take a hex number for fun. EA, B, C, or I'll try to stick with some stuff like this. B1, 9F. That would be a kind of hex number. Now, a lot of times when you see hex numbers written, they're written like this. And different people write them in different ways, but you see them written in that kind of style with colons between them, especially in IPv6 network addressing. You'll see them written like that pretty regularly. So if we go in and we want to strip that down, all we have to do is write each nibble, which is each hex character. So an E in hex, you can remember that real easy. It's 1110, right? So that's 8 plus 4 plus 2, 14. An A, we remember A now. Don't ever forget A. It's 1010. So look at that. I already wrote an 8-bit number without even hardly thinking about it. B is 11, so we know that is 1011. 1 is a really easy binary number. 9, not really a very hard binary number at all to come up with, because it's 8 plus 1 is 9, and F is all the bits turned on. Look how fast I converted that long hex number into a very simple number. I mean, that's a 24-bit number right there that I converted just like that. If you practice just a tiny bit, you can convert this. Likewise, it works the opposite direction. I'll do another one that's this long. I'm trying to make up a number here. 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 1. I don't know why. Why does it matter? Okay, it's like I'm making it up. Why does it have to be an important thing? We can convert this back to hex very quickly just by using our powers of 2, or by the fact that we recognize some of these numbers. Now, I tried to use ones that we wouldn't recognize from our little quickie chart up here. To convert this first one, it's all just nibbles. It never goes beyond that. So there's 24 bits. Looks scary. I used to put these on tests all the time, and I tell people to convert them. People come running to front of them and go, Doug, can I use a calculator? You told it's not an 8-bit number, it's 32 bits, and it's like, you told me to convert it to hex. Ah! But in reality, when you sit down and you look at a number like this, don't panic if you're just converting it to hex. If you got asked to convert this to decimal, now that's another whole animal. But if I'm just converting it to hex, it's pretty easy. This first one is 4 plus 2 is 6. The second one is 8 plus 4 is 12. That's a C. The next one, that's this one right here. Well, that's just a power of 2. That's a 2. 0 1 0 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. 1 0 0 0. Another power of 2. That's an 8 or a 9 if you want. Let's see, then we got 1, 0, 1, 1. That's 8 plus 2 is 10 plus 1 is 11. Oh, that's that 10, 11 again. I did sneak one of them in there, and we already know by now that's a B. So you can convert these back and forth super, super crazy fast, and it's a really, really easy thing to do. I like to do that. It's good to practice it sometimes. I'm trying to find my mouse so I can make sure I'm not leaving stuff out here. Okay, what if we want to convert a decimal number to hex then? So if we want to convert a decimal number to hex, like say 121, all right? Well, the first step is to convert to binary. So this is the easy, because the only reason hex exists is because of binary. So everything revolves around that. I need to convert this to binary. Now, I hope you remember how to do this from our class last week, because we're going to convert this number. So you remember, we don't need 128. We do need 64. 121 minus 64 is one. Oh boy, I picked a good one, didn't I? 121 minus 64 is 57. So I do need 32. 57, I'm trying to do this in my head. 57, I should write it out here though. 121 minus 64 equals 57. Remember that, this trick that I showed you last time? We definitely need the 32. So minus 32 is going to leave us with 24. And if I do that, I definitely need the 16. So I'll turn that bit on as well. 24 minus 16 is 8. Wow, I see what I mean? It's just off a little bit. So I can use 8 and then I know I'm done. So there is my binary number for 121. 0, 1, 1. I'm sorry, that's not correct. I needed one more bit. Hang on. Where did I go wrong there? 57 minus 32 is 24. 24 minus 16 is... No, I don't need another bit. This should be right. Let's work it backwards. So 64 and 32 is 96, and 16 is 112, and 8 is 120. I do need one more bit. Yeah, I'm not sure what... I did something wrong on the screen there, but that's the number. No problem. To convert that to hex then is very, very easy. 0, 1, 1, 1. 4 plus 2 plus 1 is 7. There's your number in hex. 1, 0, 0, 1 is 8 plus 1 is 9. So this number in hex is 79. We put this little H after it to represent it in hexadecimal. You want to convert something the other way? Let's convert AF. That's an easy one. We already know what that is in binary, right? 10, 10, and 1, 1, 1, 1. That's what that is in binary. You want to convert it, we know that going from binary to decimal is pretty easy. So 128 plus 32 is 160, 168, 172, 174, 175, 175 in decimal. So that was a very easy thing to do as far as that conversion goes. That's how you do hex to binary to decimal, decimal to binary to hex. Last thing, octal, just briefly, is base 8. The counting goes from 0 to 7. So the number 10 in octal is the number 8 in decimal. Octal can be used. If you do it, the nibbles are 3 bits instead of 4, and it works just the same way. It's a very easy thing to do, and a lot of people used to use octal. They don't typically anymore, but you may encounter it, and I want to give you 2 last pieces of information. If you see numbers written like this, and you can write numbers like this for C++ as well. If you're programming in C++, you have data sets like this. Leading zeros in C++ anyway are indicative that it is an octal number. I will warn you, if you deal with old data sets, remind me to tell you that story sometime. COBOL, RPG, and some of these old languages were columnar, and that means that everything had to be in a certain column. And so if you had 8-bit numbers, you had to write them with leading zeros. That did not mean they were octal. I had a huge programming problem with that one time where we were converting COBOL data over to C++, and the C++ was treating it all as octal, and it was causing bizarre errors in payroll. Yeah, good luck with that. Meet me at Wild West Hackin' Fest sometime, and I'll tell you that story. In hex numbers in C++ are written with 0x in front of them. And in C++, you can always write binary numbers and put them in fields. You have to declare variables that will hold them, but you can push binaries into fields. Typically, people do it with hex. So normally, if I was using binary data in C++, I would just write the binary numbers in hex, because as you've seen, it's very, very easy to convert them back up into hex numbers if you see them in binary. A lot of error codes are generated in hex because it's easier to display on the screen. You'll see that all the time. You see big, long hex numbers in Microsoft and stop errors and all sorts of like crash errors in programming. You'll see that taking that binary error that was generated by the compiler or the CPU and being converted in for display into hexadecimal, so you could convert it back to binary if you had any idea what it meant. A lot of times you'll see flag variables where they're just using the bits as little flags, so that if these 2 bits are on, doesn't even mean a number, but they'll write those out in hexadecimal. So next week when you come back, when I'm back in the studio, we're going to be on our new day, like today, of Tuesday at 11 a.m. Yeah, they're making me get up early. Thanks, guys. But nevertheless, we'll be back at our new day and time with more SDL. We're going to continue our discussion now because we can start talking about IP addressing. So we're going to come back and we're going to start about not just what an IP, you say, I know what an IP address is. I'm going to tell you why it is. And to do that, you need to know binary. So if you didn't watch my episode on binary last week, go back and check it out in the archive. Otherwise, if you're going to DEF CON and Black Hat, well, you may not be around. But I'm going to go off and do my military exercise now, so and I can't tell you about it. But I will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to SDL. See you soon. Bye.